Okay, so this is the second entry. It's called My Touch Me Ladies. It's a pair of poems written together. First one's written, it's generally about love. Second one is written about lust. So it's a pair of poems just representing two different sides of the same thing. They all come together in the middle somewhere. But what these poems are going to demonstrate is wordplay more than anything else. They won't demonstrate any kind of. I won't go too deep into what the poems are actually talking about or the meaning of the poems. I'll just go more to explain. They're more here to explain how I use my words. Basically, this is the second part of all the how to read my poems, and this one I think will explain a lot about how my poems are actually put together because everything I do is deliberate. I don't do things by accident. I don't write by accident. If I have a thought or an emotion that I'm trying to do, I start off with a thought, but then while I'm writing, I try to find the most creative way to bring that thought across. Um, Usually when I write, there's three things that I write. So basically you could read three different poems. There's one poem that has, within the same poem, by the way, it's not like it's three different poems, but it's three different aspects of the same poem. So depending on what you read, you could be reading three different poems. So most people, they concentrate on the rhyming, and that for me is the simplistic part of it. That for me is the playful side. I like to enjoy the wordplay, the enjoy the process, and when people read, I want them to also enjoy the process. So if you want to stay on that level, you can stay on that level. That's the first level. The second level is the wordplay, and the wordplay basically is all the intricacies for people who like to think a lot. Oh, did he really mean that? Did he really say what he just said? And in reality, yes, I did, because it's intentionally meant to say that. If you read something and then you have to read it again just to get another meaning from it, that was intentional. So that's the second part. The third poem would be my personal story or the thing that I usually put in it. The third poem is usually not always in every poem, but or it's not in every poem with the same magnitude. The most in depth, more in depth ones, and the ones I personally relate to the most, of course, are the ones with my own personal stories in them that go through almost every line. But the ones that don't, this part of the stories and this part, the third one, like I said, about my who I am and what I represent. If those poems aren't meant to be for everybody. They're not meant to be an everybody poem. They're more my therapeutic sense of expressing what's going on with me at the present time. So with that poem, it's basically you have to know me to get those poems. You have to really know my story and know my emotions, or you actually have to have been through something similar. Whether you be on the opposite side of that of the encounter or on the side that I am on, but you have to understand the perspective in a way that you're able to form it to yourself. And without that third poem is usually not understood by anyone, and it's not a problem if they don't. Okay, here's what we're gonna do now. I'm gonna go through the poems. What I'm gonna go through right now is the second is the second thing, the wordplay. The rhyming is gonna be in there, and I always the first entry of this how to read my poems. I did go through the wordplay, but I'm not sure if I went through it in this depth. So basically, this is the core of my poetry is the wordplay, not the rhymes. The rhymes are simple. Anybody can rhyme. Dog, fog, mog, log. It's simple to rhyme, and it's simple to get your syllables right and get them into the right place. But I find that the tedium of it, of getting syllables into straight lines and all that, or cert, having a specified amount of syllables per line, eventually becomes tedious and boring. So what I do, I write in a way that I feel it's eclectic. My brain's eclectic. I guess eclectic's a word. Yes, it is. I guess it works here. But the idea is that it's not centralized to any one meaning or understanding, and that's why when my poem's defined, I don't want it to be defined by the meter, and I don't want it to be defined by some structure or standard. I want it to be defined by the wordplay, and this is what I'm going to show you now is why this is my unique addition to what poetry is. So far, I've read poems, but I've never seen anyone use the words in this way. I've seen people use scrambled words. I've seen people use scrambled letters, all that stuff. Puns, all that stuff I've seen people do, but this is something that. Okay, like I said, we're gonna get the first poem now. This one is more about. This is the poem about love. So like I said, the meaning of the poem I'm not gonna really go over too much because, well, there's a deeper meaning, but it's more of on a personal side, and it's not necessary to really understand. It's the wordplay that's necessary to make sense of. Touch me, lady. Many stories she wrote drive me crazy. I'm back to looking for her who undresses in the light, avoids the shady in her eyes. Is everything that I see, maybe a maybe, where I see earth, the place the sky touches, she rests and says she's my baby. My present reality isn't quite matching with that equally, so the sequel sees boundriless nationality. Me connected to all humanity equally makes it hard to see my touch me lady. Who eases my mind, my soul, even my vanity. Touch me lady. Touch me, lady. I'm back to looking in her eyes, where I see earth, my present reality, boundless nationality. Touch me, lady. Even my vanity. Touch me, lady. Many stories she wrote drive me crazy. For her who undresses in the light, avoids the shady. Everything that I see, maybe a maybe. The place the sky touches she rests and says she's my baby isn't quite matching with that equally. So the sequel sees me connected to all humanity equally. It makes it hard to see my touch me, lady, who eases my mind, my soul. Touch me, lady. Okay, that one, if you see how it's written, when I'll put up how it's written somewhere on the screen. But it's the idea of how it's written, not how it's read, because no one is actually going to read those lines. What happens is that the poem is read once as a whole, and then it's read the first line, the third line, the fifth line, so every other odd numbered line, and then it's reread again with every second line. So it's a poem inside of a poem inside of a poem that's actually one poem. So it's three different poems. No, one, two, three, four different poems. One whole poem with every line read, reread, and read again. And then every third line is a poem, and every second line is a poem, if that makes sense. So the idea is that that's how the words are played together, and that is done intentionally to be like that. And this is the extremity that all my poems can be taken to, but I don't do that while I write, because that also takes away from some of the human aspects of the poem and hides most of the meaning. So this is a poem I did as a more of a challenge to myself to see if I was able to do it, because most of my poems are done in that context. What this poem stands out for is what you would see in most of my poems is something that goes like this. I'm going to read a couple lines for you. Start with the fourth line. For her who undresses in the light, avoids the shady in her eyes is. And you go, for her who undresses in the light. That's one thing. That's one line. Part of the line. And the next part of the line goes, avoids the shady in her eyes. And I go, avoids the shady in her eyes. So that's another thought. But if you read the line together, it's for her who undresses in the light, avoids the shady. So that's another how I play with the words in most of my poems. I don't do the complicated read this line, next line, read this line, next line. I just keep it I keep it going straight. There's no need to go back and come forward. It just goes straight down. And then in that same line, in her eyes is everything that I see, maybe a maybe. So again, that inner eyes is also related to the next line. So it keeps going down. And then the second, and in the line after that, it goes, everything that I see, maybe a maybe. And then you take that last maybe and go, maybe where I see earth. And then you keep going. Every line qualifies the line above it, or every line above it qualifies the line that comes after. So that is something is how my poems are read. That's the intricate, detailed version of how my poems are read. If you won't have to, if you can understand the concept I put in this one poem, it looks short, but it isn't. But if you can understand that concept, then all my poems will be understood. How the words play together, it's intentional. There's a poem I wrote, it's also called It's All a Fantasy. Everywhere where you see the word fantasy, you read the entire section in between each word fantasy, and it connects to the fantasy is the conclusion, but fantasy is also the start of the next section. So that idea is something that I carry through every poem that I write, and you'll see it in everything that I do. All right, as a bonus, hopefully that makes sense. I'm not sure right now if the idea comes out clear enough, and I'm hoping that it does, because I would love for everyone to understand that this is not something that is done trivially. It's done with thought. No matter how quickly you see me create a poem, everything that I do is done with thought, and it's something that I've done from the beginning. I've started since I started to write, and I carried it through up until now. But I've just refined it to the point where I can define it. I've put it in a sense where I've done it consistently enough that it's become a tool that I use, and I don't know what to really call it, juxtaposition, whatever you want to call it. But it's not something that I've seen in poetry, and I maybe I haven't studied enough, but this is what I do as a poet, and that's, like I said, this is the second entry. So let me give you the bonus, the second touch me lady, which is basically the one, the lust. It's not really, it's not as complex as the first one. It's just a balance for the first one. So they're labeled number one and number two. This is number two. They're both called my touch me ladies. So this is just a balance for the first poem. And it goes, touch me, lady, if you can. I'll make you say, whoa, man. Corny, I know, but you let me get away with things that no man you know can. Because you know me and your friend Samantha Angela misprogrammed, put it on full broadcast, and now you want to bounce to my slow jams. Have you running and screaming like you saw dynamite on a blown dam? You know, am I me a little slow? Can you touch me, lady? You like me better with a fro? That was a door slam, playing fool to catch wise. Oh damn, I missed that part of the program, but there's still one window open. Don't play games, I'm a grown man. You looking out for your friend? Oh man, the short skirt and pink thong. Why put it on? Put it to good use. Whisper. One time, there's no wrong. So touch me, lady. There's no restrictions. You can. My tan, my hand isn't meant to change your doubts. I won't lie. This is so wrong. But look at your heartbeat. I can't touch you, lady, without your clothes gone. So that's essentially what it is. And this one, although it's not as complex as the first one, it has little it has a bunch of puns in there, but those are just for the joke of it. But the idea is that it carries the same flow that the first poem carried. There's something that I had from the very first one, historical prophecies, something about how the words are messed up. It goes, you know, am I me me a little slow? It says, you know, am I me a little slow? It's written that way on purpose to define the thought process of someone who doesn't quite understand something. So it's like somebody with a mental retardation. So they can't put words together properly. So that's the idea behind that simple line. It's simple, but it's put in there to give you a better definition of what the poem is talking about.